Welcome to Off the Shelf. I'm your host, Yvonne Wolf. Today, our special guest is Eric Feinendegen. He's a professional speaker and author of The FEIN-er Things, a 52-week guide to living an inspired life. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you so much for having me, Yvonne. I know we're going to have some fun here today.
Well, this book sounds like one of the COVID projects. We get a lot of authors who are finishing up or writing their first book during this time. Is your book a COVID project?
Actually, it is, but there's a backstory to it. I finished the book during the pandemic, but the journey to writing it started many, many years ago. Like a lot of people, I had thoughts of, I wanted to put some things on paper and I wanted to be an author. But, over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, I got married, had 3 kids,
Yes.
working 2 careers, right?
Yeah.
Life gets busy. So I had started, jotting down some ideas. Again, this is many, many years ago. Never took it really that serious. But then, of course, COVID hit. And it really freed up a lot of time for me, and I know for a lot of other people. As you mentioned, I'm a professional speaker.
That's tough, right?
Yeah.
All the events were...
Yeah, you look at the industry, It came to a screeching halt.
Yes.
I know a hypnotist out of Canada. He had 28 gigs cancel in 1 year.
Wow, and that's a billion-dollar industry.
Correct.
Tourism, all that.
Yeah, hospitality, speaking, conventions. So now we have all this time on our hands. And I said, okay, Eric, well, if you don't get it done now, it'll never happen. So I took some of that time in the slowdown to really focus and dedicate toward my book. And thankfully, I got it done.
Wow. And instead of panicking, right, you decide to put it somewhere good. How did you expect to spend more time on it than it turned out to be, or what did you think?
Sure. Originally, I thought it would take me about 6 months because the book originated from a video blog that I did, which is called The FEIN-er Things, Strategies to Living an Inspired Life. And I thought, okay, this is pretty good content. I'd been at it for about 6 months, and I got some really good feedback. I said, no problem. I'll just take the content from my video blog and just kind of copy and paste it into a book. Easy, done, right?
Transcription only.
Yeah, right? No. So that 6 months, and I'll admit it, turned into almost 2 years. So it took me almost a full 2 years to complete the book. And what I learned was there's so much that goes into the editing process and making sure that the quotes match. As I mentioned, I have pictures that help tell the story.
That's right.
They have to be able to relate. But here's the biggest challenge that I found. When you take 2 years, the content that you wrote 2 years ago can become outdated quite a bit.
Wow, yes.
So a lot of things happened over the course of COVID and during the pandemic. And I have some examples that were pre-vaccine. And I talk about, some of the challenges of COVID and everything that goes into that before we had the vaccination. So now now the vaccines came out and I had to go and update a lot of the anecdotes, when it came to the COVID messaging. And I found that to be something I had to do with other examples as well. Life happens so fast, the rate of change is exponential.
Right.
So again, over those 2 years, I found that some of my examples of my material was getting dated. And I had to go back and make sure everything was current, and that definitely added some time to the writing process.
Wow. Yes, who knew things would change that fast?
So the lesson is, Eric, write faster. So you don't have to go back and change the examples.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
Well, I've always known you, Eric, as a very energetic and positive person, so I don't think this was a difficult assignment. I mean, was it hard to bring it down to 52? Was your original plan like 30 days, or was it 365 days?
Sure. Well, I'll correct you on one thing in terms of my journey. It was somewhat difficult. I equate writing a book to kind of like raising a child. As I mentioned, I have 3. You've got to nurture it, you've got to feed it, you've got to love it. It's going to be temperamental, it's going to talk back to you, but you love it anyways, and you bring it along, right? And hopefully you have a great product at the end. So that's kind of my journey. But in terms of, the 52 weeks, I look back at the content that I wanted to provide. And, growing up, I always was searching for that one thing, kind of that one anecdote, quote, or phrase that would propel me, Yvonne, to a life of fulfillment and success. But what I found was it's not just one thing. It's a multitude of philosophies, of actions, and things that we can do. So that's why I decided to include 52 weeks. Now, when I started, I didn't have that number 52 per se, but I figured, okay, I wanted something that people can do weekly. And I didn't want to overwhelm people, with 365 things to do. Yeah. So I figured, okay, people can do one thing a week and focus on a specific activity or philosophy. And then if you work on that over that 7 days, you can ingrain it into your daily activity. It can become a habit, and then you can use that for the rest of your life.
Yes.
So that's how I got to 52.
Well, habits are hard to change, and habits are difficult to pick up.
Yes, especially the bad ones.
Well, the bad ones are easy to pick up.
Right, exactly. And the hardest to change, right?
Right. So as a professional speaker, so you say you have wanted to write, so you are now an author. Through this journey, how do you see these two positions, these two skills as a speaker and a writer, how do they interact together, or how do they grow together?
Sure. Well, I think they're combined because as a speaker, I share a message verbally. As a writer, and I have a nonfiction book, I share it, on the written word. So to me, it's about connecting my message, whether it be a live audience or a listener, who's reading on the page. So it really comes down to connecting with the message. And I think it's almost identical, again, whether you're sharing it from the stage in person or someone's reading your words. Either way, you're trying to convey an idea and improve someone's condition. If you look at even deeper, it all comes down to storytelling. So if you go through my book, it's 52 chapters, there's 52 strategies, and each one has its own story or vignette or example. And what I do is I'll take that story and then I'll share a point that matches with that story, which is basically, and I know you've done quite a bit of public speaking as well, that's what we do as speakers. We tell a story and then we make a point. And we do that because a lot of times people may forget the message or the point, but they'll always remember the story.
Yes.
And if you can remember that, then you can go back and remember the message. So that's why I took what I did in speaking and just basically transferred it and put it on paper.
I noticed that about your book. It just seems so easy to read because there is just a very accessible level where you're not trying to overwhelm the audience. Right?
Well, exactly. And when people read the book, they'll see that I do have quite a few pictures that go through it, some quotes. I try to make it more of an entertaining, like an experience per se. Yeah. So each chapter is its own journey. Again, it's its own experience. This way people can stay engaged.
Eric, who did you have in mind when you were writing this book? I know you talk about, as a speaker, you're always thinking about your audience. How can they connect with you? But was there someone particular?
Absolutely. When I sat down and wrote the book, that was the first question I asked myself. Okay, Eric, who is this for? Who's going to get the most value out of this? And I kept thinking about it, Yvonne, and thinking about it, and I came up with this answer. It's anyone who wants more out of life, to do more, and to give more, because that's very important to living an inspired life. It's not only, being successful, but also being significant in terms of giving back and helping those around you and improving their lives.
It's a cycle of self-improvement.
Absolutely. To me, you can't have one without the other. And when you look at the different generations, and my day job is in financial planning, so I work with the senior population.
Right.
And what I found is, they're not looking for the rocking chair. They're looking to go out and really spread their wings, become more engaged, become more fulfilled, and live a life of purpose.
That's true.
Same thing
Yes,
with
I
people my
noticed that.
age. So I'll be 50. Yes. I'll be 50
I'm
next
shocked,
time.
Eric. You don't look at
Well, it's the lighting, I guess. So I'm middle-aged. Same thing with us. We're in a constant state of transition, but we're always looking for purpose and our passion.
Yeah.
And even the younger
Well,
generation.
I'm shocked there. I just still can't get over that. I feel like you've been much younger than me for a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway, we know each other as Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And I think that Toastmasters is an organization. It's all about self-improvement. It's all
Yes.
about how do you get better from where you are.
Yeah.
Many times people don't think of it like that. They only think of it as speaking or public communication and so forth. But I feel that your book, coming out from this place of self-improvement and self-help, is very consistent with being a Toastmaster.
It is. One of the main themes of the book is growth. And if you look at Toastmasters, it's how can you grow out of, let's say, your fear? How can you grow and improve to be a better communicator, a better leader? And you mentioned consistency, and that's exactly what it is. The goal of the book is to encourage people to grow spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially. You grow in your health, grow in your relationships. Because my feeling is when you're growing, then you're staying inspired. When you're growing, then it reignites the spark because you're changing your life in a positive way. And that momentum keeps building and building and building. So if you're not growing, in my opinion, you're in a state of inertia, and that's the worst place to be. So it is about growth, whether it's in Toastmasters or in your personal life.
So it's very applicable for any age group.
Absolutely. I will say this, and I mentioned this in the introduction. It's applicable for every age group. Doesn't matter your gender, your race, identity, background. It's for everyone. But if people are looking for the easy way out, it is not for that group. The strategies that I share are going to take work. They're going to take a commitment. They're going to take some reflection.
Yes.
And
asking some difficult questions to yourself.
Absolutely. It's going inside, being very reflective and saying, okay, what is it that I want to do? What is my passion? And what is my purpose? And I love this, and people may have heard it before, but the two greatest days in your life are the day that you're born and the day that you find out why. And if you can figure out your why, you will live an inspired life.
Do you have a quote to share with us, or do you have a chapter you want to bring up?
Yeah. People ask me all the time, Eric, what's your favorite chapter? Well,
I don't like to ask
it's kind of like
favorite.
asking Eric, who's your favorite kid?
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly.
So I love all the chapters, but one of my favorite chapters is called Wait and See. I feel that a lot of us are victims of the moment, meaning something happens to us, and then we're so quick to label it and say, oh, that's not good, or that's a bad thing that happened to me. And I share a story in the book where I was in sales and I had a great client base. I was in a great division, and I'll admit it, I was making great money. But then I got transferred to what I call the sales graveyard. Bad customers, bad division, and bad commissions, bad money. But here's what happened, Yvonne. When I was transferred there, I ended up sitting next to a very cute 23-year-old brunette whose name was Maggie.
I have a feeling I know where this one's going.
Yes. And, with that pretty smile and those blue eyes, she had me before. Hello. And to fast forward, we ended up getting married.
She's made you a better man.
And she got 3 kids. Correct. She's definitely my better half. But I look back at that, and I was too quick to prejudge that situation because I thought it was the end of the world. But if that had never happened, I wouldn't have the life that I have today. So I guess the message would be when you're facing challenges, look for the good in those challenges. What can come out of it, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times our pain does turn into our purpose. And so
Yes.
those are some of the
What
things.
hurts us most, right, is probably telling us what
Yes.
our real growth needs to be.
Correct. So, I guess the one thing I would share is wait and see, right? Let things play out. Continue to be consistent in your effort and your goal setting and your dreaming, but usually things work out for the best.
So, Eric, tell me about the cover. Now, how did you decide on this cover, and what does this hand sign mean?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of challenges in writing a book. For me, in my journey, the cover was the easiest part. And I'll share the cover. Here's what it is. Blue is my favorite color. So I'm wearing blue today, and I've got, there's a lot of blues. So I knew I wanted to get blue on the cover. But also, I love water. To me, water is life. I love to swim in it. I love to be around it. I think it gives energy. And of course, I love to drink it. So I knew on the cover I wanted to have blue and I wanted to have water. But here's the truly important part. And this is the sunrise or the sunset. I wanted to make the cover an individual journey for each person that picked up the book. So for some, that sunrise, it may be a sunrise. For others, it may be a sunset. It all depends on where you're at in your personal journey. And I wanted people to reflect and say, okay, what is my journey? Where am I going? Again, it comes down to the quality of the questions. So what I wanted, again, for the cover to really relay is, okay, where are you going in your life? Have you thought about it? And, what's your ultimate destination?
The focus on the finer things.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, Eric, did you have to find an editor? And during COVID, I imagine you did not, were you part of a writing club?
Sure.
These kind of supportive parts of the writing journey.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, one thing I will say, and I'm sure other authors have shared this with you, is you cannot write a book alone. Just like life, you can't get through it alone.
Right.
So finding an editor was very important to me, and I got very, very lucky, Yvonne. I had met a woman, and I talk about her in my acknowledgments, Rhonda Caudale. She's the CEO of Presentation Graphics. She had been working with me on my logo, on my brand. She gave me consultation on my website. And lo and behold, she also did publishing services, illustrations, and editing.
Wow.
So it really worked out well for me.
What a
Rhonda was
talented-
kind of like a one-stop shop.
Yes. Well,
And we had such a good working relationship. She would say, Eric, let me stop you right now. And she would give me great direction and just kind of, walk me through the process. Her supports and her help with the whole project was invaluable. So I was very, very lucky. But when you talk about the writing club, I have a secret weapon. And I'll share it with everybody. It's my soon-to-be 15-year-old daughter.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Because what's great about Rachel, my daughter, is she represents, the younger generation. She would say, all right, Dad, and I'd offer some of the content. She'd say, Dad, no. Your examples are way outdated.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got to, okay, perfect.
Right.
That's
That's interesting, right? Don't talk about Brady Bunch.
no,
Okay,
no,
nobody.
correct.
Right, nobody.
Correct. Yeah, it's Beyonce now,
Yeah,
not Brady Bunch
right,
or whatever.
right.
So she would give me all the up-to-date references, all the new language that's being used, all the examples, the anecdotes, that type of thing. And again, I wanted this to be a book for everybody. So I knew how to write to people older than me because I've worked with them so much, and people
Yes,
my age,
I agree.
but not the younger generation.
Yeah.
So Rachel, she's great at English, and I think she's going to be an author one day too.
Oh,
But
definitely.
she was very, very helpful, Yvonne, with giving me feedback, making sure my references were current and updated, and just kind of being my sounding board.
That's how you connect with the audience, right?
Yes.
We cannot connect with the audience until we are speaking something they can relate to.
Yeah.
Now, that's so funny, Eric, because I was
Right.
in a supermarket with my kids who are also teens, and we I was thinking, why are they playing so much 80s music? And then my son was reminding me that just like when we went to store many years ago as children, we heard the oldies, the
Right.
50s and the 60s music in the supermarket. Now the 80s music is the oldies.
Yeah.
So it's so embarrassing. But
That's great.
tell us some lessons you have learned from being a writer. And now your experience with Rachel is a good example. But how
Yeah.
about something like from your readership? Have you heard something or responses from your readers?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for asking. And I'm going to use a reference back to speaking. One of the goals as a speaker is to improve the condition
Yes.
of your listener, or the people in your audience. I mean, that's why we're there. And I feel as authors, whether it's to entertain, take people on a journey, give information, provide hope, I think that's the goal of the author. And I want to share a testimonial and some feedback that I got, and I saw it on Amazon, and it really brought things home for me, right? There were moments where I questioned, Eric, is it worth it? All the time, all the energy that I put forth in the book. And I'm going to read this right now. When this came through, that answered that question. So I'll just read it a little bit, and this is right off of Amazon. After reading the paper version, my family purchased the audio version. The book was my rock in my journey of changing my career from academia to industry. It inspired me to go for it, to liberate myself, and to welcome challenges. I was encouraged by this book to not operate under a fear of loss, because that's what leads to procrastination, inaction, and missed opportunities. I was inspired to ask more of myself. The results? I feel more energetic, alive, and relaxed at the same time. Be brave to live a life, and an inspired one.
Wow.
So
How
that
moving.
was just a brief summary of that. And I've gotten, I'm humbled and honored to say I've gotten quite a few of those. And that just really makes you obviously feel good as someone who wants to serve and improve, again, the condition.
And I think we need that message so much,
Yeah.
especially after COVID. There's so many people who are living with a lot of changes, but
Yeah.
almost nowhere to go with that energy.
Yeah,
Maybe that's-
and I did a lot of research with the book, and to your point, COVID really put a lot of challenges in people's lives. Some of my research, 70% of people admit that they're living a life of unfulfillment and somewhat of a frustration. Wow. 70%, I couldn't believe it.
That is huge.
And if you look at the younger generation, they're disengaged in a lot of different areas. So I think that, what it is that you're doing, other authors, if we can help people, right, lighten the load a little bit and just be a little more hopeful and a little more happier in their lives, writing a book is definitely worth it.
Oh, I'm impressed with just your purpose as a speaker, that you bring hope to people.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful mission. Eric, what connects you to Glenview? I know you've been a frequent visitor to North Suburban Toastmaster Club.
Yes, and I love North Suburban Toastmasters. Special hello to all my fellow Toasties out of North Suburban. I've been a guest speaker quite a few times at that club, so it's great. I love those Toastmasters. As I mentioned, I'm 49 years old, and I've been born and raised in Lake County my entire life. I left for 4 years to go to college, but I'm a homegrown guy, and I spent a lot of time in Cook County, Lake County, and especially Glenview. One thing that a lot of people don't know about me is I refereed basketball for 11 years. And I've done so many games at Glenbrook South, Glenbrook North, a lot of the different locations within Glenview. I feel like it's my second home.
They're very busy with
Yes.
these basketball games are absolutely
Correct.
hundreds of people, if not thousands, attend these things,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So I've got to know a lot of people in addition to my Toastmasters, my fellow Toastmasters, but also, having the 3 kids and their ages 14, 12, and soon to be 9, I can tell you, Yvonne, how much time we spent at the Children's Museum, the Coles Children's Museum. Right? So,
Yes.
I think I spent just as much money on, on entry fees in that museum as on my mortgage. They love it so much. But so I've just spent a lot of time in the area, and I got to know quite a few people from Glenview, yourself included, and just a wonderful place. And I look forward to spending a lot more time, in the Glenview area.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's been a pleasure having you join us.
Thank you so much for having me, Yvonne. What you do in the film crew here is an invaluable service. As an author, I speak for my fellow authors. We really appreciate you and your staff allowing us to share ideas about our book, talk about our journey, and to connect with your audience. So thank you so much.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on Off the Shelf.